everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am your host Nerd Cosa Nostra, and this is Reign of Horror. So we finally are starting to get some Stranger Things season 5, the final season news from Netflix, from some of the actors and actresses involved. So we are going to cover off on what those are. We've got the episode names revealed, and we got one of the main actors coming out, pretty much saying we can expect to see some pretty good action sequences in this final season. I know many have been waiting for this. Many have been waiting for this final season. It feels like a long time coming, especially if you've been a fan of the show, if you've been following the show since season 1. I mean, when you just look at the actors and actresses, you can see it feels like a lot of time has passed, and rightfully so it has. But again, I've always been one of those individuals, regardless of TV, regardless of a movie franchise. If you're going to do more so TV, but we have seen a few movie franchises where you do have the same actors and actresses playing the same roles over several sequels. And I've always been one of those individuals where I feel like if you know that's where it's headed and that's the long-term plan, try to give it the Lord of the Rings treatment. Try to film as many of the content back to back so your core set of actors and actresses don't age so drastically as the show or as the sequels continue. I'll give 2 examples. One, Stranger Things. I mean, we've seen how these kids have all aged since season 1. They definitely look, obviously, rightfully so, much older than they were when they first started. And another prime example would be, especially when you look at source material, would be the Harry Potter franchise. It's not horror, I get that, but again, it's just an example that I'm using. When you look at the core set of actors and actresses for the Harry Potter franchise, and when you compare that to the source material, they look vastly older than they should, compared to the books. And again, just an example. So with Stranger Things season 5, not even it's not coming out till next year. However, we do know, again, it's the final season, so it's probably a good thing that this show is coming to an end. Not so much for that. Don't get me wrong. I don't think any show should end just because of that reason alone. But I think enough time has passed for this show that it's kind of run its course. I feel like it had its day in the sun, but with the time gaps between the seasons, it almost feels like it's your hardcore fans have been looking forward to this. Rightfully so. Don't get me wrong. Completely on board with that. However, your general audience, it feels like the wave of this show has completely died down, and the excitement, the buzz, the talk, the water cooler talk is non-existent, really. And the excitement that's being drummed up, so to speak, with the latest news for season 5, again, it's those hardcore fans. And I'm wondering how much of the general audience, those general viewers, are you going to get to come back to the table to watch this final season? Because either have they forgotten about the show, have they not cared, or just simply moved on to something else that they're enjoying, and now they've forgotten. They don't really remember what happened, not just so much in the last season, but overall in the show. And many people aren't going to go back and reinvest the time to watch 4 seasons of the show just to kind of get caught back up on, okay, where are we at again? I forgot what was happening, and it's just so I can be prepared for the last season. So we'll see how this we'll see how successful this last season is. I think with many shows, sometimes the last season isn't the best season, and sometimes it just feels like things might just be rushed, might not fully vetted and completed, and then your hardcore fans are left very disappointed. So we're going to talk about Stranger Things season 5, and then we are going to talk about another cult horror franchise that could potentially see another film added to its list of ongoing sequels, or this could be a remake. I'm not going to spoil it yet. We'll wait till we get to that topic. It's going to be a pretty quick show today. So we just have the two things: the Stranger Things, and then the last part. I left some time just because of the last topic. I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit deeper than normal than we do on some franchises. So let's get right into it. So as I mentioned, Stranger Things 5 officially confirmed for 2025 premiere with episode reveal teaser. So there is a teaser out there that the official Stranger Things YouTube channel put out. It's not much of there's no scenes, there's nothing like that. It is very much a teaser. With this being a Netflix show, a Netflix trailer, we won't be playing it here today, but I will provide the link of this article in the description below, which there is below. You can find at the very bottom. We'll scroll down there. You can just click here and watch it. Again, it's just about a minute long. Not much to it. So anyway, in the fall of 1987, one last adventure begins. Netflix has officially announced this morning that Stranger Things 5, the hit show's final season, will be arriving sometime in 2025. Additionally, they revealed the titles of the show's final 8 episodes. Stranger Things 5 episodes titles include The Crawl, The Vanishing of, then we have some underscores here, The Turnbow Trap, Sorcerer, Shock Jock, Escape from Kamazataz. I'm not pronouncing that right. I apologize, guys. The Bridge, and The Right Side Up. So 8 episodes. Not surprised. Don't think any of us were surprised. We all knew it was going to be 8 episodes. However, you all know how I feel about 8-episode formats. I'm not a fan of 8-episode formats. It seems to be the new thing that shows, TV series are doing, whether it's a limited series, a one and done, or if it's an ongoing TV show. It seems like 8 episodes is the max studios are doing. It doesn't make sense to me. I think at least 10 is sufficient, especially when in there you're going to have I don't want to call it a throwaway episode, but you're going to have a filler episode in there somewhere, typically around episode 4 or 5. And then depending upon where you're at in the show's run, you're going to have some backstory, especially in a season 1. You're going to have some backstory for some characters. And then you might have that same thing in subsequent seasons if you bring on new characters, or if you decide to do flashbacks or anything of that nature, right? So I think 8 episodes, you got to have your script, your story, dialed in. You got to keep your audience engaged. You got to keep building and building. However, my issue is that one of the recent shows, House of the Dragon season 2, it felt like what it was doing was it was building and building all the way up to that last episode 8, and then it completely just was like a cliffhanger episode. It was pretty much just telling you, yeah, we're preparing for something, but we'll see you in 2 years when we give you season 3. And with this being season 5, and the final season, we know hopefully that they've dialed everything in. They've got the story where it needs to be to tell a full story and doesn't leave things rushed, doesn't leave things kind of open-ended. Now, they might decide to leave it open-ended to potentially say, hey, we're going to do a Stranger Things movie somewhere down the road, and we want to leave a door open for that opportunity. So we'll see. Going down here a little bit further, we just talk about some of the returning crew that's coming back for it. The season 4 finale set the stage for a final season that will bring the action entirely back to Hawkins, with the rift between Hawkins and the Upside Down now completely opened by the monster behind it all, Vecna. Stay tuned for more on Stranger Things 5 as we learn it. And of course, because the main series is coming to an end, does it mean future Stranger Things projects aren't on the way? Season 5 was announced as the final season, with additional projects in the universe already in the works, including Stranger Things, The First Shadow, live on stage on Broadway next year, along with an untitled animated spin-off series. So this seems par for the course. It seems with many successful things, it's either going to hit Broadway or they now turn to animated, maybe because it's cheaper in many ways doing animation. I don't mind. I mean, I'm not against animation. Don't get me wrong. I definitely think it has its place. It has its fan base. However, if you're going to do spin-offs or kind of continue something, I would prefer live action. That's just my preference. Again, I'm not against animation. Again, it serves its purpose. It has its place in every genre. For me, it's not one I would prefer to see replace live action. If you're going to continue telling a story of the characters or of a particular character, I would prefer myself live action. So we have a few set scenes or set images from season 5. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you can see how they've all grown over the years, and again, it just doesn't feel, again, it just doesn't have that same feel as the earlier seasons. And again, if you can film as much as you can, if you know you're going to keep a show going for a bit, try to film maybe if they'd have done a couple seasons back to back, that might have been a little bit better, right? And then they could have just banked them. They don't necessarily have to release them. They could have left the release schedule the same way. Just film as much as you can while they're still somewhat the same age as they were when the show started. And then we came to the end. So we do have another, staying on the topic of Stranger Things 5. We're going to jump to this next one here. Stranger Things 5, Season 5. Finn Wolfhard promises a lot of action sequences in the final season. Stranger Things cast member Finn Wolfhard says Season 5, the final season of the show, has a lot of action sequences. That's good. Always like to, I think we all in agreement, we always like to see a bit more action in anything. After being delayed several months by the writer's strike and the actor's strike, Season 5 of the hit Netflix series Stranger Things, which is also the last season of the show, finally went into production at the start of the year and is now deep into its 12-month shooting schedule. See, so this is what I was just talking about. I think the writing might have been on the wall for the writer's strike and the actor's strike. I think that in many ways, the studios, or we all knew that was going to eventually come, rightfully so. And then you have a 12-month shooting schedule. So you're shooting this season for a year. Again, when you think about how these kids are growing up, they're growing up fast, and they're not going to necessarily reflect how they were looking in the earlier seasons, and how each season moves on. If you're taking a year to film, and then it's another year or so before you release a season, unforeseen issues like these actors and writers' strikes, which then delays it even further before something else starts to get filmed again. Again, for me, it just feels very disconnected. I know it's the same actors and actresses, but again, when they're meant to be a certain age and yet they don't look that way, doing time jumps sometimes doesn't make sense in the story. If you're trying to say in season, and this is just an example, if you're trying to tell me in one season they are 13 years old, and then in another season you're like, oh well, we decided to time jump 5 years, and now they're this age, 18, 19 or whatever, that doesn't make much sense to me. And then they're still dealing with the same issues or same problems like it was just the previous season. So I think sometimes all that needs to be baked in to the formula to say, how do we prepare for these potential things that might come up. So yeah, we'll see how this last season plays out, and I could be completely wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll admit that if it plays out just fine. But if it doesn't, then you heard it here first. At least you heard it from my perspective. And while a premiere date for the last batch of episodes hasn't yet been announced, which we know we know 2025 sometimes, as we just read, but no specific date. It's drawing near, as evidenced by the recent teaser reveal of every episode's title. As for we can expect from the final season of Stranger Things, cast member Finn Wolfhard has let it be known that a lot of action sequences is on the list. So we have some quotes here. We have the synopsis. So let's not read the synopsis first. Let's just jump right to the quote from Wolfhard. Told Us Weekly that while working on season 5, I'm really trying to be present with the character. I've just been very deliberate in the way that I treat coming onto set, just having as good of a time as we can, since we know it's the last season. He couldn't reveal much about the episodes, but he did say there's, quote, a lot of action sequences, end quote. while also describing season 5 as, quote, a really intimate season, but at the same time, a huge season just in the scale of it, end quote. During this interview, Wolfhard also talked about the horror genre. Quote, it's a genre that I love as a viewer because to me, if it's a really good horror movie, it's the perfect movie because it really gets a reaction out of you and makes you feel something, always. The way I feel after watching a good horror movie is different from the way I feel after watching a really good drama or anything else. It's very versatile. So now, I mean, the rest of this just goes on to list out who all the cast members are, producers, what they've been involved in previously, and that pretty much wraps it up. So, I mean, at least, again, hopefully they're going out with a bang on this last season. I mean, hopefully we do see some long action sequences and maybe over the course of all 8 episodes or something. Hopefully this isn't just to set us up for failure or disappointment where we think, one of the actors came out and say, hey, we can expect a lot of action sequences, and they're 2 or 3 minute action sequences, one here in episode 2, one in, a couple in episode 5, and maybe a few more in episode 8, and that's the end of the show. To me, that's not a lot of action sequences. A lot of action sequences is you have multiple ones in every episode, this being your last season, and you only have 8 episodes, so I would hope that a lot truly means a lot and not what maybe their interpretation of a lot is. So we will see. Again, we know we're getting it in 2025, but we obviously don't know when in 2025 we will be getting this final season. So, all right. So moving on to our last topic, and this might come as a surprise to some. This might come as a surprise as nobody. Cult horror film Tremors set for reboot. So let's scroll down here. Tremors could be set for a reboot, according to original writer S.S. Wilson. The 1990 monster movie starred Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Michael Gross, and Reba McEntire, and focused on the small desert town of Perfection, Nevada, which comes under attack from giant worm-like creatures. Tremors became a cult hit upon home release, and thanks to repeat TV screenings, and spawned 6 direct-to-video sequels and a 2003 television show, Tremors the series. The film was co-written by Wilson and Brent Maddock, and the pair have secured the rights to their original screenplay, with Wilson spilling at the 2nd annual Tremors Fest in Santa Fe, New Mexico, that they can now remake movie. I didn't put "the" in there. He told fans, "What we have now, just got." Are the rights to our original screenplay. That's good. We can remake Tremors if we want to. We don't have the rights to Shriekers. We don't have the rights to Ass Blasters. We don't have the rights to Tremors 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. The return of the rights to Wilson and Maddock by Universal Pictures has happened due to the rule that creators can transfer the rights of a given copyright after 35 years. So it just kind of goes on just to kind of talk about, some of the previous actors and actresses that were involved, and that pretty much where it ends off. So hey, great, good for them. Glad to know that they got the rights back to the original, of the original film from 1990. I remember this film came out in, I think it was early 1990. I want to say January, February-ish of 1990. And I do recall that, Brent and S.S. Wilson also did the screenplay, they were the screenwriters, and they did the story for the second one. So the second one, I think, came out 5-6 years or so after the original. So they still have some time to wait before they get the rights back to that one. I don't know necessarily their involvement in the story or screenwriting any of the further ones. They might have been involved in 3 and 4, which were done in the early 2000s. But I do know that they were both. Brett did direct the 3rd one, and I think S.S. Wilson directed the 4th one. And then they kind of, at that point, for 5, 6, and 7, stepped away. And for the TV series, I know they were involved in the screenplay, but the TV series again. I don't think they were involved actually in the TV series. I think that one was done outside of them, because the TV series was done for, as I mentioned, for one season in the early 2000s, and it was canceled. It used to be on an old network called Sci-Fi, SYFY. If any of you remember that particular channel or station. But yeah, it's good, again, good to see that this is going. The rights are going back to the original creators. Now, whether or not we get a remake, I don't know. I mean, I know the cult following on that original film is huge. It is a huge cult following. I mean, obviously, you have. You have some actors that are still around for this. I mean, I believe Fred Ward. I believe he passed away a couple of years ago. So I mean, obviously, you see a picture of him here. So he's no longer with us, and he was one of the stars along with Kevin Bacon in the original film. He was also in the second as well. But one of the main actors who's been, I think, in all of the films except for maybe one was Michael Gross. Which I can't imagine a Tremors film without him in it. Even if it is a remake, you would hope he's in there somewhere, even if it's a different character or some sort of nod to his character where he's somewhere maybe in the background, just to say, hey, he's, this is a Tremors movie and he's obviously a part of it. But 7 films in, and they want to do a remake. Obviously they can only do a remake off the original, and I'm not sure what the repercussions or what leeway they would have to do if that remake is successful. Could they do a part 2 to that and be a completely new story outside of Tremors 2 Aftershocks that again came out in 95 or 96? So we will see. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets a remake. Most films like this from the 80s and 90s, they're going to remake them at some point. We've seen a history of that. We've seen a trend of that. So again, wouldn't be surprised. But again, all in all, glad to see the rights went back to the original creators that brought us the Tremors film. So all right, everyone, that's going to do it for today's show. I just want to thank everyone for joining me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your evening. And we will, if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel. And we will see you at the next one. Peace.